Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Love and Lattes. Self-love scientist here, Victoria, and I am so excited to have a very special guest with me today. Karine Beddard is here with me. Karine is a trailblazing force as the sex-positive relationship designer. She is dedicated to guiding individuals towards embracing their authentic needs and desires. With a passion for dismantling shame and guilt surrounding intimacy and sexuality, Karine empowers both men and women to break free from societal constraints and design relationships that align with their true selves. Her transformative approach not only replaces shame with confidence, but also cultivates a sense of peace, allowing her clients to step into their power and ethically create the relationships of their dreams. So excited. Welcome here. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's just really fun to get to talk to you again because I had you on my podcast. Like, I don't know, it's probably been almost a year.
Yes, I think it's been over a year. And like we're experiencing all these new changes for us. And had the ability to chat like last week. I was like, well, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yay.
So right off the bat, what I'd love for you to share with everyone, just in case it's new, I'd love for you to share with everyone how you became a sex positive relationship designer.
Well, I like to think of it. So it's kind of a combination of things, but I grew up very fundamentalist, evangelical Christian. So I went to Bible school, Moody Bible Institute in Chicago, to be specific. But it was very, very strict. There was a girls' dorm and a guys' dorm, and the two shall not mix. There was no PDA on campus, so like even kissing was very frowned upon. For sure, making out, but the guys didn't go into the girls' dorms, and you had a brother floor and all that kind of stuff. And so there was a lot of just training, I'm going to say programming about sexuality being wrong and only for marriage, for instance, or those kinds of things. So I was a virgin when I got married, and I was 22 when I got married. And then 15 years into my marriage, my ex-husband deconverted. And my whole world came crumbling down. And I was like, what in the world is this? Like what do you mean we have the truth? Why, if you have the truth, why would you look at anything else? Or why would you investigate that? Or why would you question that? You have the truth, right? So that was a really big process in my life because he didn't do anything like frivolously, right? Like he wouldn't have just left our faith in order to just be heathen. He wasn't like a super sexual person necessarily or anything like that. So it's not like he was like wanting an excuse to live his own life. And so sort of through the process of like, I've always been told like these sex people are the worst of the worst, right? The world is miserable. Everybody has no joy outside of Christ, outside of the church, like nobody has joy. Everybody's miserable. That's what I'd been told pretty much. And so it really keeps you locked in on some sense, right? Like you don't want to mess with that. You don't want to leave that because you're like, everybody's just living a terrible life. So I started listening to Playboy Radio just to kind of see quickly if everything I'd been taught added up, if it was true, because I was hearing all this other stuff on the other side, like the historical stuff. And I was like, okay, I'm a relational being. I'm a psychologist kind of person. Like, I really want to know sort of like the psychology of people. Are people really not happy, and are the sex people really self-loathing and don't have any self-respect, all that kind of stuff. And as I started listening to Playboy Radio, I found my people. I was like, what in the world? Okay, nothing I have been taught is making sense according to how these people are acting. They're intelligent. They have so much self-respect. They respect each other. They respect themselves. Like the ones that were having sex even for like sex workers, they had chosen that because they enjoyed it. And I was like, what? What? Like, what? There was no framework for that. People were having conversations naked with each other, like co-hosts on shows, having other guests. They were playing games and people were naked and the co-hosts were naked and they weren't married to each other, but this was perfectly normal, having conversations. Like my mind was blown at how natural sexuality was. And people didn't have shame about it. And I was like, what is this? Like, what is happening here? And so I really went on this journey to like learn about sex positivity. This was a new concept to me, right? What is sex positivity? Like, what was that? I'd just been taught sex negativity, unless it's for marriage and procreation and all that kind of stuff. And I wasn't taught that. Like, I was taught that in marriage, sex was pleasurable and it could be fun and all that kind of stuff. So it wasn't just for procreation, unlike a lot of Catholics, right? So I looked forward to getting married. But the idea is that my body was not my own. It belonged to my future husband was very prevalent. No one said that, but like clearly, if I'm not allowed to masturbate and that's something that brings me pleasure and I only do that by myself and I enjoy that and I'm getting in big trouble for that, then obviously my body's not mine. I can't enjoy anything about my own body until I'm married. And then when you're married, then you have someone, so it's still not your body. Like you're not really supposed to touch yourself. So like all this stuff, which leads me to the point I'm getting to, is that when I was 22, I had very different views of marriage, views of sexuality, views of love, relationships, what they should look like. And I talk about this with my clients all the time. Like we're taught everything through a mono mindset. And mono simply means one. There's one way to have relationships, to love or whatever. The predominant choice that we are given, we're not given a choice. The predominant model we are given is monogamy. Mm-hmm. And we're told monogamy is the right way and you get married and you live happily ever after. And marriage is forever or you failed, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So I also love design and interior design and that whole process. And I got thinking and I was like, as I went through this deconstruction process, my ex-husband and I started to rebuild our worldview. And we also started to renegotiate what our marriage looked like for us. Like, what is it that we actually want? Not what did the church tell us we should be wanting and doing and how we should be acting, but what did we want for ourselves? And so we started to renegotiate some terms and be able to talk about like our sexual fantasies together and stuff, which we couldn't do before. We didn't talk about that. Like, I don't want him to know those things about me. That's evil, or whatever. It's shameful. Let's get to the core of it. Most people have so much shame about their sexuality or their desires, or especially their fantasies, right? Like, ooh, we don't talk about that, right? So it just made me go, okay, when we buy a home, we buy something that we like, but often we'll come in and we'll redecorate, we'll change the colors or whatever. And then we also, further down the line, we don't shame anybody for redesigning their home. Like getting a designer in, you say, what styles do you like? What do you want? What colors do you like? Are you classic style, modern style, whatever? And the designer works with the couple who owns the home and they figure out what they want to use the home for, like what it's going to look like, what they would feel comfortable with. And they come up with a plan and they redesign the home to fit those needs. And I was like, why are we not allowed to redesign our marriages? Why can't we redesign or renegotiate the terms of a marriage or a relationship? Like, why can't we do that?
Mm.
And I just thought, how sad is it? Like I've written a piece before, and like a thought piece, and it's like you walk into a home that's been there for so long, like old, it still has like, the forest green carpet on the floor and maybe the dusty pink walls and the flowered couch, and there's plastic on the couches and the touch lamps with the doilies, um and the cross stitch on the wall, you can picture it, right? You can feel it. You walk in, like, what does, right? What does it feel like? What does it feel like to enter that space in your mind? What do you think it would feel like?
Oh, like cobwebs.
Yeah, okay. You're
Oh,
like, ugh, right?
that's
Like, you have to sit a certain way, you have to act a certain way. You're like, there's not a lot of freedom to be myself here, is there? And then imagine that, turn that around and imagine walking into a newly renovated, redesigned home that someone is proud to have people in, and the furniture is practical and usable and everything. Like, what's the difference in feeling there?
it feels safer. Almost. If
Mm.
you think of, like, immediately it feels like I can breathe and
Mm-hmm.
safe. It's bright, welcoming, and
Yeah.
sex.
And I thought, why do we stay stuck with the forest green carpet and the dusty rose walls? Essentially, that's what we're doing in our marriages. If we're following the one prescribed path for everybody to follow, this is the right way to do it. Sex means love. I'm not whole unless I find my person.
Mhm.
I'm not complete without a partner. As a woman, I'm not complete unless I'm married and have kids and I'm a mom, right? Of course. Maybe I also need a fulfilling career as well, because just being a mom isn't enough anymore. Like, these things change, but they're still very restrictive, right? Also, as a woman, I shouldn't want like crazy sex. That's not really my role, because then I'm kind of a slut. I'm kind of a hoe, and I'm not really wife material. And maybe and I've had clients say this to me, they're like, well, the kind of woman that I want to, can I swear? Is
Yeah.
this a, okay. The kind of woman that I want to fuck is not the kind of woman I want to marry.
Ooh.
Right? And this is like a programmed mentality. It's like, she's wife material, but if she's sexy and into sex and wants, has a lot of desires, and she's fun and dresses up, whatever, there's a lot of programming there that goes, well, she's fun, I can have fun with her, but she's not marriage material.
It reminds me of like she's either the prude or the whore kind of thing. Yeah.
Exactly. There's no, the two shall not become one. Right? Not in that sense.
Right. There's that block, or there's this unrealistic, I have to seek permission to do that.
Yeah.
I love that you did this. Like the energy of that.
Well, and the thing is, I go, okay, so in this model, if you just think about it for just 2 seconds, just leave it at this. So this is all you know about marriage and relationship. Is it any wonder that there's so many cheaters? I mean, so many marriages end because of cheating and dishonesty. Well, if you can't get your fantasies met within the same relationship as the mom and the great wife, like, how is that going to work? You've got to seek something outside, because we just don't, they're two separate boxes. And what I want people to do is get out of the fucking boxes, just climb out, let's destroy the boxes, and let's create and design exactly what works for you based on who you are. What are your needs? What are your likes, your desires? But I can guarantee that you're not going to be able to design something to your liking if you don't even know what you like. If you've spent your whole life pleasing others and just knowing what they want and trying to meet their needs, when it comes time to speak up for what you want, you're either going to have a lot of shame about what you want, or you simply don't know. You've pushed it down so much. You think it's wrong, or you settle for what you think is the right model. You're
That's,
like, oh.
oh my gosh, yes, 100%. I can vouch for this. I can 100% because, like you said, we enter into these relationships with the mindset of, to me, it wasn't about pleasure. It was, I have found someone who is validating my existence. Therefore, I will, go forth, marry, and have children. And never got that far. We ended in divorce. And when I started putting myself back out there, I remember being with someone who just, just lit me up in all the right ways. But the moment they asked me well, what do you like? What do you want? And I was like, I don't even know, my God. Because I could not, I never gave myself the chance to explore and really get to know. So even from that, from that person, I learned a lot that night, which was more. And I do think it's important for women, men, anyone out there to safely explore these different desires and getting to know the bells and whistles of your body, bells and whistles of your partner and lover's bodies, and creating. To me, it's all about creating that safety, between your person, and also, like you said, the shame, recognizing that's what's coming up. That's what's blocking us from
so true
answering those questions. It's like, oh, what turns you on? And you're gonna most women are like, what? Because you think of turn on and immediately, their brains think of I don't know what comes to mind when I say turn on for you. What do you think of?
Turn on or turn off? Turn on. Turn on. I mean, for me, if you ask me what my fantasy is to have a nice meal and a great intellectual conversation. And then that translates to gentle touch. And even if there's no sex or intercourse, I feel so fulfilled. So that's my turn on. Doesn't sound very sexy to someone. It doesn't sound no, what are your fantasies? No, literally, that's my fantasy. People are something wild and crazy. And it could be, I mean, if you do that and you get me to that point, I'll show you wild and crazy. But I don't desire wild and crazy off the bat because my joys are different, and my partner, for instance, he loves wild and crazy. He's more if he's stressed, he needs a good stress fuck, right? And I will want to stress fuck if I've had the gentle, relaxed, whatever, where I can just get it back into my body. Cause I'm so busy running a business that I'm just ooh, I'm so focused. And sometimes I forget to get into my body. So if my body doesn't belong to me, how the hell am I going to get back in my body? Let's say he needs a stress fuck. Because that will totally soften him, and then he's totally energetic and beautiful, cuddly. I mean, he is that anyways, but he's just so safe, that provides safety for him. And if I can just sort of take care of myself in some way and just kind of get myself to that place, then we can come together. And you know what I mean? Or if he needs a stress fuck and I really am not in that place, he can take care of himself because he doesn't belong to me. I don't belong to him. Do you know what I mean? This concept of ownership is another mono mindset concept that literally destroys happily ever after. It's crazy. So many things we've been taught. Just really, I say everything we know about love and relationships or love and sex can destroy happily ever after. People are like, what? It does, because we have all these expectations of what it's supposed to look like. And there's one word that's kind of been coming up already through this conversation, and that word is safety. You know, like safety within ourselves, safety with our partners, safety about our thoughts about sexuality, safety in our body. Like it's safety, right? And I deal a lot with designing, creating empowered relationships, right? Because I'm all about empowerment. And it starts with you. But people are always like, oh, I'm like, how do you create an empowered relationship? They're like, it's all about communication, 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 communication. And I'm like, okay, I disagree. They're like, what? How can you disagree that relationships are about communication? I said, well, try communicating if you don't feel safe and if you don't feel connected with your partner. And I'll tell you, I knew all the communication words to say. Like I studied that shit as a teenager. That's what I did for fun. You know, while everybody was like reading novels and fiction, I was reading marriage books, like how to communicate with your husband, you know, the SALT principle, all that lovely stuff, how to get him to listen, all these things, right? Which are kind of manipulative tactics in a way. But done with the right intention, they have their place. So I knew all the techniques to communicate, and I was like, why can't I communicate? Because I did not feel safe communicating. And I did not feel connected to my ex-husband. When you feel safe and when you feel connected, there's nothing you can't talk about. You could say it in all the wrong ways. You could fail miserably at quote unquote communication. But if you feel safe and connected, there's nothing you can't talk about. And that safety and connection starts with yourself. Because if I don't feel safe sharing something, sharing a desire, for instance, then I'm already going to be in a tense place. I'm going to be projecting that you are going to judge me for that before I even start sharing. I'm going to expect resistance. Why? Because I'm resisting my own self.
Ooh, oh my God. Oh my God. That was fucking powerful. Wow.
I don't think we think about that, right? Like if I'm like, okay, I have a fantasy. Okay, I'm not bi. I'm one of the rare straight girls in the lifestyle or as a swinger in ethical non-monogamy. We'll talk about that, right? So I'm one of the rare straight girls. But let's say I discovered I might be a little bit bi or I'm curious about other women. But I have deep shame about that because of my upbringing, my programming, whatever it may be. I am never going to bring that up to my partner because I'm going to fear judgment. I'm going to be like, I can't, what is he going to think of me? Like he's going to think that I don't love him. I'm going to project all the things that he might say to shut that down. But what if I have zero shame about that desire in myself? And what if I'm not attached to the outcome? Like he doesn't have to agree with me for it to be true for me and for it to be something that I desire. Then I'm going to share in this authentic place. And it doesn't matter what his response is. I'm going to feel safe in my own body. Because what he thinks of it doesn't change me feeling okay about it. And talking about it sharing doesn't mean it has to happen. Like I often talk about this, like this curiosity bubble. And so like one of the ways a couple can create safety, let me go back a second. Let's say I do share that with him and he's like, oh, that's so wrong. Like, how could you even think that? Blah, 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 blah. You have no shame about it. Is he holding safety? Is he creating safety for me to share honestly? Right? Like that's going to shut down communication, even if I said it in the most wonderful way. And even if I don't have shame about it, because often he might jump to the conclusion from whatever his trauma is growing up, right? He didn't feel safe with his own ideas or his own thoughts, or he just feel like he's allowed to have his own desires. So all of a sudden he's like, well, what? Am I not good enough? Do you want someone else? Or do we have to change it? I don't feel safe with it. I don't want to do that. But that's not what you're saying. So that's why I say, like, I talk about this curiosity bubble. And it's like, let's talk about things in a safe place where you can't agree or disagree. It's just curiosity. We're just sharing things that might be fun, maybe not. Let's get our take on that. Let's get your take on that. But it's not committing to anything.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really big difference, right? And I think a lot of times people say, if I bring something up, they're going to have to agree in order for it to even be considered. But like, let's make those two completely different conversations, right? So these are just some of the things that affect relationships and how we see things. So if communication is the goal, you're going to run into you're going to share things and you're going to be like, well, I shared my truth and I shared my feelings. Why do I feel so shitty? Because nobody knows how to create safety, and you don't know how to create it for yourself. They don't know how to create it for themselves. And then we certainly don't know how to create it together, right?
I love that that's such a deeper insight into communicating, because I hear it everywhere where it's like, oh, they only like, why did this fall apart? Well, they didn't communicate enough. And it's like, no, people are talking, then there's like lack of effort. However, on a deeper level of this, it's that safety factor. So I'd love to know, what is one way someone could cultivate safety for themselves before they even like have this conversation. Like, if someone's listening to this and they're like, they have these secret fantasies, desires, or even just curiosities, like fantasies is one thing, but like, you may, and I'd love to hear about this too, like, even though you have this fantasy, like, let's say, like, thinking about what it would be like to be with a woman, but you're not going to do it. Like, it's just the thought is there, it's arousing in some manner, but then you're just like, would be really great to talk to someone. So how do you create safety for yourself?
First, you have to be able to let go of shame about things. So it's really important so my program, Breaking Free from Conformity, Embracing Your True Desires, is all about taking a look at what the mono mindset has programmed you to think. Because you don't even know what you've been programmed to think. Most of your core beliefs, and a lot of them are disempowering beliefs, most of those beliefs were formed by the time you were 7 years old. Well, at 7 years old, the information that you're getting from the world around you, from your parents, the messages that you're getting are being filtered through a 7-year-old brain. Like, that's not necessarily true, but you were like, oh, well, that means that, like for me, at 4 years old, when I got in trouble for masturbating, it was not anything to, like, it was just like, oh, I discovered this pleasurable sensation in my body, right? And all of a sudden I'm getting so in trouble for it. My mom is like clearly troubled. And I'm like, I have done the worst thing in the world. Like, I better not do that again. But I liked that. But why is it wrong? Well, it just must be wrong, right? And so you have this belief that, well, I'm not supposed to experience pleasure. You're not thinking of it in those words, but you're like, oh, well, that felt good. That's wrong. So it must be when things feel good that's wrong. Or it makes people upset if I do things that feel good for me. Oh, okay. So now I've got that belief, right? So these are how core beliefs are formed. So I grew up going, masturbation is very, very off limits. That's bad. If I even desire it, I'm shameful. Like, there's so much shame in that. Why would I want that? I should be content with things, and I shouldn't have sexual desires. I'm not married yet. Like, what does that mean about me? Right? Like, is that true? Is that a healthy thought? No. Right? And that filters into like me getting married and me, having sex for the first time and everything else connected with sexuality, right? That thing. But I am not going to feel safe to experience masturbating in my own marriage, for instance, my Christian marriage at the time, because that's so shameful. And I'm certainly not going to bring it up. Maybe he would love to watch me masturbate. We're certainly not going to talk about that, right? Until I discovered sex positivity on Playboy, right? And I was like, wait a second. There's nothing wrong with masturbation. In fact, it's healthy for your body. In fact, it releases like, healthy hormones and all kinds of things that can help my mental health. What? I've struggled with depression and this could have helped. Do you know, like, I was shocked. And all of a sudden, I didn't have shame about that, about wanting that anymore. And the release of the shame made me go, hey, there's this thing that I've never talked about that maybe I could talk about now. So then, because we were going through this process of like breaking down shame and sexuality, we started talking about sexuality in such a different way. Our desires and it was the best time in our marriage. And we were married 23 years. So those years were just like the next couple years after we deconverted was like full of like wonder and curiosity and excitement. It had nothing to do with ethical non-monogamy, really. It was just like discovering our sexuality within our own marriage, right? Still, it was just within us as a couple, but then we could fantasize a little bit and go, oh, wouldn't that be fun, or this or that? We could bring some fantasy. So the third piece to an empowered relationship for me, so it's safety, connection, and novelty. So if you bring in novelty, trying new things sexually, with food, dates, new experiences, new decor, whatever it is, bringing a sense of novelty to your relationship keeps you empowered because you get to talk about new things. You get to not be in a rut. It just keeps the relationship fresh. So those three things for me are like key to an empowered relationship. And there's a lot more that goes to that. But you can see how this unraveling of shame at the subconscious level, really, really looking at the programming that's deep down, this conformity that we are bound to in our culture, right? We're so bound to conform in order to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's so important for us. We all want to fit in. We all want to belong somewhere. And so the easiest way to do that is just follow the rules. So we think, but we all have different perceptions of the rules. The rules are all kind of the same, but there's different variations. And then there's two people that come together from very different backgrounds that have different core beliefs and different subconscious programming, which hugely affect how you feel safe about certain things, And a lot of us have never gotten to experience being truly authentic because that was wrong. It didn't fit the mold, maybe. So you held that back. You shoved it down, or you put a mask on so you could fit in.
Amazing.
I love your face right now. You're just like, boom.
It's everything you've said. I'm like, yes. Oh, for sure. Like, it's not even, it's the safety. It's going back to, asking like if this conversation we're having is exciting for me because like I know what it is like to have felt like being in that box because like you said, we're human beings. We're supposed to be we're supposed to be within community, but it's like by the community guidelines. And it's like, well, I don't think these guidelines are working for me, but I guess I'll just swallow my pride and keep going. And
because we're fed that this should lead to happily ever after. But nobody's talking about the failure of happily ever after, that it's actually, you're not happy. It's not working out, and you think something's wrong with you.
Yeah.
You think that, what have I done wrong? Why can't I do this? Why can other people do relationships, but I can't? There must be something wrong with me, So I'm just going to bite my tongue. I'm just going to bide my time. I'm just going to make sure, you know what? I'm happy if you're happy. Happy wife, happy life. Right? Like, it's just, we just fall into this sort of complacency in life, and we're not living. And like, if you don't figure out how you are conforming, the danger is that you will fill up with so much resentment at not getting to be yourself that you'll have a major midlife crisis. You will lose your marbles. You will start doing things that you never intended to do. You had no intention to do. You might cheat on the person you absolutely love because you don't see a way out. There is no way for you to find out who you are without hurting other people. And you don't want to do that. So you either choose to just stick with the status quo and have just this minimally enjoyable life, or you take a chance and you become authentic. But that's not something that most people can do on their own. It's a process. And that's what I'm here for. This course that we do in just 8 weeks, we learn what you've been programmed. I mean, I have a couple in there right now in my cohort, and they're separated right now. And I told them, I was like, if you take this program, the goal cannot be getting back together. Like, that cannot be the goal. The goal has to be self-love and wholeness and finding your authenticity. Because only when you're whole and your partner is whole can you come together and have a fulfilling relationship. But until then, you're just going to be living your life for someone else in some way, shape, or form. Either running away from someone else, trying to protect yourself and your vulnerability, or you're going to live your life for other people because that's your mission. That's the way you find worthiness. But when you can learn what that programming is and then unlearn it safely, and we also use hypnotherapy to like really quickly get to the subconscious and like unravel that programming. But like they've only had 2 sessions, 2 weeks, and they're like, holy shit, mind blown, oh my God, I can see why I do that. We've not talked at all about why they do what they do, or the problems in their relationship that led to the separation. We haven't dealt with that. We've just been uncovering truth bombs about what we've been taught about love and relationships. And they're like, oh, no wonder we've been quote unquote failing so much. No wonder we didn't know what to do. Nobody has taught us how to think about this in a healthy way. So what we do is we learn the programming, the mono mindset, we unlearn it, and then we relearn what actually works for you. So we design. You keep the design elements that you want, the beliefs that suit you, that work for you, the ones you actually believe, and the ones that are actually true. Because as you unravel your core beliefs, you're like, wait a second, that's actually not true. I'm actually not a bad person. I'm actually not selfish. I was just scared. Or I was taught that I shouldn't have desires for other people. That's wrong. That makes me a bad person. I've been shoving that down, and that's why I cheated. Because anything that's forbidden, it's like, don't press the red button. Yeah. What do you want to do? Victoria, don't think about a pink elephant, okay? What are you thinking about?
Right?
If you think about a pink elephant, it will ruin your relationship. Do not think about it. Don't desire it. Don't want it. You're going to be obsessed. And now you're going to be like, I can't stop thinking about pink elephants. I just can't do it. I can't do it. Oh, this conversation also often, instead of pink elephant, we say porn, maybe. Yeah. Right? And so you shouldn't watch porn. You shouldn't need porn. That just means I'm not important to you. Well, that poor, I'm just going to say that poor lovely husband right now, just it's women too, but that poor lovely man is working so hard to not think about porn and not want to watch porn. And the more he thinks about not doing it, the more he's obsessing about it, the more it's forbidden, the more he's thinking about it. And all of a sudden he breaks down and then he goes and does the thing and
But like
watches the porn.
it's like the building up. Like when you
Yeah.
bring in kids, you tell them no, and they're like, I'm still gonna fucking do it.
Yeah, they're like, no, how close can I get? How close can I get to that fire without touching it and getting burnt, right? We are wired for this. Like, it's not our fault that we desire things that are forbidden. It's just in our psyche. And if we understand that, one of the first things I say is there are no forbidden thoughts, desires, or emotions or fantasies, if you want to just throw all that together, right? And all of a sudden you're like, none? No, nothing you think about is forbidden. Nothing. Not everything is permissible and not everything is ethical to play out. But nothing is off limits for you to think about and want. You get to want it. You don't have a choice if you want it or not, but it doesn't mean you get to have everything you want. We say that to kids all the time. Well, I know you want the candy, but that's not good for you and you can't have the candy right now. And so we redirect or whatever. But if you're just like, you can't want candy ever, ever in your life. If you ever want candy, you're a bad person, right? It's going to ruin your relationship. And I'm just saying that because it's crazy. And we rely on willpower for everything, right? But what if it wasn't about willpower? What if it was about conscious choice? What if you had permission to desire whatever you want, you felt safe enough to discuss it, and then you felt connected enough to decide on what you're going to do and not do with your partner and create a custom relationship that works for you? Like, I am a lover. I love people deeply. No one ever shamed me for wanting more than one child growing up when I was married. Like, I have 3 children and no one ever said, oh my gosh, how can you have another child if you have a child already? You won't be able to love them. Right? Nobody's ever shamed me for that. But the idea that we could love more than one person romantically is like abhorrent in our culture. Like, it's like, oh my gosh, you could never love more than one person. So love is scarce in romantic relationships, but there's no scarcity on love for children. And again, how do we define love? Like, is sex love? Because that's what we're saying, that sex equals love. And so that's a different kind of love. For some people, it might be. I prefer to say sex is sex, love is love, and you can combine them as much as you want. Again, that's part of your design. You can choose that. I can have sex. Sometimes we can have, what is it? Stress fucks, right? That is not about love. I mean, we know we love each other and we feel safe enough to do that. But that's not an indicator of our deep love for each other, other than the safety and connection and being safe enough to allow that. But love doesn't have to be communicated through sex. It can. And sometimes the two overlap and it's beautiful. It's fireworks, like you can do both. I have a huge capacity to love people. And so I have relationships with other people that involve love and deep connections and emotions with others. And some of them have sex and some sex is not a part of it. But that doesn't invalidate, if there's no sex, it doesn't invalidate the love and emotion that I have with someone. Like, I think if we could just normalize friendship as being as important as a romantic partner, life would be so different. Also, I say, like, in marriage, like, if we just treated our partners like they were friends, a good friend, you wouldn't expect certain things from a friend that you put on a partner. Like, we put so many unrealistic expectations on a partner just because, well, you belong to me now and you have to read my mind or you don't love me. Well, I would never expect a friend to read my mind, or they're not good enough. Like, they're not being a good friend if you can't tell exactly what I need right now. Just little things like that. And I'm trying to be cheeky a little bit, but just to prove a point that, like, why are we putting these restrictions? Because that's what we've been taught. Like, we're just following the rules. And we're not really willing to admit that those rules aren't working because we're so busy feeling bad about ourselves and feeling shame about our unsuccess in relationship. And we just think we're the only ones who just can't figure it out. Or it's someone else's fault, And so I don't remember where I was going with that, but go ahead. You look like you have some beautiful things to chime in with.
Oh, I mean, this has been fantastic, and I know I'm like really excited to hear what people's thoughts are from this conversation, because you provided a lot of value, especially like the scarcity mindset, the shame mindset, and just what your life could look like by just asking yourself these hard questions and actually entertaining the fact that there is more to what might be normal for you. Like, the fact that some women might experience unsatisfying sex and consider that to be normal, because in their mind it's like, oh, I'm just meant to have children. Like, I didn't realize that sex could be pleasurable.
Right.
I just, at a young age, like, sex appeal is what was going to attract a partner. Did I feel good about it?
My podcast guest, to like my last episode that just came out, where is that? She said there's like, I think it's like 20 different kinds of orgasms.
Yeah.
As a woman, 20 different kinds. And, like, maybe you've only ever had one. Maybe you've never had any. Girl, we need to talk.
That's what I'm saying. That's what we're going to fix, because.
Right. And the thing is, like, and I'm not a sex therapist, like a lot of people think that, but I am busy shifting your mindset. I say I'm a mind fuck a lot of times, like, I'm a mind fuck. I upset the way that we see things and I reframe it. And all of a sudden it's magic. And you're like, oh my gosh, I never thought of things that way. I never looked at the world that way, and that's why I talk about conscious monogamy. I have absolutely no issue with monogamy. Do not get me wrong. I think monogamy is wonderful, but I want you to choose it consciously, knowing that it's not going to provide ultimate safety. It's not monogamy that's going to provide safety. And a lot of people think that monogamy and the mindset that if I own someone, if I'm married, I'm not ever going to be alone. And so I have to protect that at all costs. But that's not true. How many people are alone in a marriage? I was for many years, right? I was so alone. And now I'm not married, and I am with my partner. I've been together with him for many years now, and I do not feel alone. I am my own person. I am authentic. He's his own person. We happen to be ethically non-monogamous, which is a beautiful fit for us. That looks different in different seasons. We just moved in together last year. So this past year, we have been less polyamorous. We still like have the ability to love people and the desire to love people, but we don't have the capacity and the energy to have full-on equal relationships with other people right now. So the people that are in our lives with other relationships, they just understand that and they choose to be a part of that or not. Like, I only have this much capacity right now. If that works for you, then great. So it's very ethical and honest still, even though it's not fair, because it's not always about fair. It's about being able to be truthful and be honest about what it is that you can give, what you can receive, what you're able to do in that time. And then some people, I mean, we're also swingers. So you know, we go to the sex club all the time. We have a family there. Like we go there and our friends, when we all get together, we're like jumping into each other's arms and kissing and just having such a great time, just being together and partying together and just having fun. And often there's never sex happening with us. People think it's just about that, but it actually isn't. It's about so much more than that. But if we want to, yeah, there's other things. So this whole world can be so unique to anybody. You can literally design the relationship that you want. And I want people to do that safely. Like I will hold your hand. I'm a warm blanket to lead you into this world so that you don't ruin the relationship that you have or that you're afraid to lose, because we all have that fear, right? And I also have like just a very beginner sort of program called Open Relationship Roadmap, The Secrets to Success. And it's a video course. And by the time you're done, you'll know if being in an open relationship is for you. But the little secret is that if you can know the skills to be in an open relationship, you'll have a fucking awesome conscious monogamous relationship. Because the skills you need in order to be in an open relationship are like amazing skills. And you take those to a monogamous relationship, you'll just kick that up like, lots of notches. And it's amazing. So that is just all part of the process, right? Like you get to decide. It's like a buffet. You get to go, you choose some things. If you don't like it, you don't go back for more. You just pick what you like and you go back and get more of that, And so it's a fun process, and you don't have to be non-monogamous. You can be monogamous, but I just want people to have conscious relationships where they choose. And that is my final answer.
That was a beautiful way to wrap it. I love that. You get to choose how you want to be. Just be conscious about the relationships you're having.
Yes.
Identifying your wants and needs and cultivating safety by letting go of the shame from these old programs. Mm-hmm. You're a goddess. Oh my God.
Oh, I love you.
Like I have literally, I can't believe how much time has gone by. And
I know. I looked at the time and I'm like, whoa, that's not 35 minutes.
I know. It's okay. Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anyone. I've so loved watching your face the whole time. You've just had this, like, your eyes have been like huge and you're like, oh my gosh. I love it.
I love it. No, this is the kind of information that I get so giddy about because personally, coming out of a divorce, I was like, I thought I knew everything. Clearly, I don't. And then being asked on the spot and feeling embarrassed, like I don't know what like makes me orgasm. I've never done that before. And then learning how to do that on my own, learning that it's possible to have that experience with partners, like just the ability to find that safety to consciously choose. Like actually, I am gonna do that. When I knew an old part of me would be like, oh. How dare you?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, like sex, relationships, life is meant to feel like this. Like you said, I love that you use the word buffet. Like it is. Choose. You get to choose. You always have a choice. It's just that at one point
you can change your mind, right?
Yes.
At any time.
You can change your mind. And at one point, like the reason why we're struggling is because whether it's as small, like you said, when you were 4 and you tried masturbating and you were told no, it was that small impact that just really set the stage for it was like, I guess I'm not doing that. So
I will do that, but I'm going to feel shame about it my whole life and hide it.
That's not good for us. Like down to the body. No, this has been an exciting conversation and I love so much. I'm gonna have to I know everyone listening, you're probably thinking the same thing. Like this has been a freaking juicy episode. I can't wait for this to come.
I'm going to invite you personally to come up to Toronto because we have the most amazing sex positive community up here. There's several clubs and I'm telling you, it is the most freeing experience to go to a sex club because I guarantee it's not what you think it's going to be. It is not what you think it's going to be. You walk in, it's like a regular club. I used to host VIP events to have new people come, newbie events. And people were like, do I have to bring a towel? Like, I don't know. Do I have to take my clothes off as soon as I get there? I'm like, no. You walk in, there's a bar, there's people dressed sexy or not. They can be however they feel comfortable. And there's just an energy and a vibe of confidence in the room. It's just like, yeah, you walk in and there's no sex happening there. There's a back playroom at most clubs, and that's private. And most of the time, there's not single men that are allowed in certain areas. Like, and in some areas you have to take your clothes. Everybody has to be equally undressed, And so there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of etiquette to keep you safe. And it's very much a women-led society, I'm going to say, like the women, we just own it, man. It's so fun. And so if you want to come and just check it out, I will take you to the club, my love.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. And thank you for sharing such powerful insights. And everyone listening, I'm going to be dropping in the show notes Karine's program, her 8-week program about breaking free from conformities, along with all of her socials and Facebook groups. So please check those out, especially if you're like, unsure. And she's got a really great quiz if you're still curious.
I do.
So thank you so much for joining us, Karine. I absolutely love and adore you. You're fucking phenomenal.
Well, I love you too. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm so glad you have a podcast now because welcome to the podcasting world.